Welcome back to the Surplus Fund Ultimate Beginner Guide. And in this video, I'll be showing you exactly where to get leads from and where to get contracts from. All right, guys, so in this video, I'm going to be showing you exactly where we get contracts from, how you can get contracts. I'm also going to be showing you exactly where to get leads from for all the different niches. So if you haven't already watched episode 1 and episode 2, we cover picking your niche and then picking your state. And if you don't have both of those things selected, it's going to be difficult to get contracts and leads because you don't have a niche or a state. So go back, watch episode 1, watch episode 2. And make sure you're watching this in the right order. And also, listen, if you're following along in this video, stay to the end because I'm going to be covering a lot of different details and you might miss something if you don't stay all the way to the end. That's going to be really, really important for you to know because a lot of nuances with contracts and leads that are going to be super, super important. And the last thing before we jump into it, make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you can get notified next time we drop that free course link. Once a month, we give out 1 to 2 free courses to people that are subscribed with the notification bell. Make sure you are subscribed so you can see that. All right, so let's start with leads. And leads, it changes depending on if you're doing state funds, if you're doing mortgages, if you're doing taxes. But let's start with leads and let's start with state funds. Now, with state funds, the first thing is there's this whole thing about state funds and blah, blah, blah. I want you guys all to know I made up the term state funds. It's not even a real term, okay? If you look up state funds on Google, nothing's really going to come up. What state funds actually is, what the real technical term is unclaimed property. The reason why I changed it to state funds was because we had mortgage funds that we teach, right, or mortgage overages, and we have tax overages or tax funds, and I figured mortgage funds, tax funds, surplus funds, state funds. That's what made sense to me, but now it's become this big thing. But when you're looking for leads for state funds, what you're going to want to do is you want to go to Google and you want to type in the state that you're working in. So for example, you could put New York, you could put Massachusetts, you could put Florida, California, Texas, whatever state you want to work in. And then you want to follow that with the phrase unclaimed property. Okay, so your state, again, whatever the state name is, space unclaimed, space property into Google. Now that should bring up some sort of a government website. A common one is missingmoney.com, but you can't download a list from them. But there's all these different government websites for each state that some of them will have lists for you to download. Sometimes you got to buy a list. They'll ship you a CD. I know, like we're living in 2005 or something. It's ridiculous. And sometimes they won't have a list at all. So if you go on a website where they have a list really accessible, obviously you just download the list. Boom, problem solved. If there's a CD or something that you need to get, then just pay them the 10 bucks that they want. They'll ship you a CD. And boom, you got leads that way. If you can't find leads on their website, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to call their offices. Usually on there, they'll have an email and a phone number you can call directly to the unclaimed property division. That's what it's called for your state. And what you're going to want to tell them is, hey, look, I'm looking to recover other people's money and charge a small percentage there's different names for every state of what it exactly is. It could be a private investigator, it could be an heir, a fee finder, could be an asset recoverer. I mean, there's all these different names, but they all do the same thing, right? You're just recovering money for people. So you're going to want to call them and say, hey, I'm looking to do this. Do you guys offer leads? And I just want to warn you right now, the people that work at the state, they're probably not going to be very nice. They're probably going to be a little bit rude and mean. And there's a couple of reasons why, but the brief summary is, number one is if you've ever been to the DMV, not the nicest people at the DMV there either. They don't really have an incentive a lot of times in these government places to be nice and be polite, right? Whereas private companies a lot of times do. So not to get political or anything, it's not really even political at all, to be honest with you, but everyone's been to the DMV, everyone's had that bad experience at the DMV before, I've heard of someone that has, and that's just because there's not a lot of incentives. It's the same thing with state funds. So you're going to get a lot of people telling you that maybe it's not even possible, that maybe they're just being rude and mean to you. Just brush all that off and move on and say, listen, I get what you're saying, but I know it's possible because I've seen this and this and this person do it, and I just need the information. So let's just get to the point here, okay? Be respectful when you do that though, okay? So that's how you get it for state funds. Again, if they have it right there on the website, you just download it right there on the website. If they give you a CD, you just buy the CD. And if they don't have it, if you can't find it, give them a call, see if they even have a list. And if they don't, then you're gonna have to find a different state. or you could look into the counties. Now with tax funds, or the next chapter of things I'm going to cover, what you want to do is there's a few different sites that offer tax lists or tax auction information. And so you're going to want to go to one of those sites, sign up for an account. They're typically private accounts or private companies. You're going to pay, between 50 to 100 to 200 to 500 bucks a month, or even a couple $1,000 a month, depending on exactly how much data you want, how accurate the data is, all of that. And you're probably going to want to go through that route. Now, the other route is you could go through the counties and do your own kind of research on a county by county basis, and that works really well too, but it's a little bit more technical and it's a little bit more intensive. So I would recommend that for someone that is a little bit more experienced with real estate, that has done like property research through counties and all of that before. If you haven't, then just go with one of the private companies. Yeah, you're going to spend $100 or whatever it is, but it's going to make your life so much easier. It's going to be worth it, okay? So that's pretty much it for tax funds or tax leverages. It's really not that complicated. Another strategy that you can do with taxes, and you can do with mortgages as well, is you can kind of track foreclosures as they're coming up in the future. And I'll talk about that more with the mortgages, but that is something you can do as well. Say, hey, this person looks like they're in trouble with their taxes. Are they going to get foreclosed on? What's the process looking like as we're coming up to that, right? But that's more of a mortgage thing. You can do it with taxes. But that's pretty much it. So again, if you're new, or if you just want something simple and easy, go through a private company. Just look online for them. They're pretty easy to find. And if you're not new and you're experienced, or a lot of times, the tax companies that have tax leads are only work in certain states, so don't have data in all the states. So if that's the case, you just don't have data in your state, or you're a little bit more advanced, then I would start looking into your county, or counties around you. That you could get leads from there as well. And again, kind of same thing with the state funds. If you can't necessarily find it on there, then just give the county a call and say, hey, look, this is what I'm looking to do. Do you guys have this information? Is this even available? You might actually have to go down to the courthouse and actually walk in there and get the information, but just give them a call and see what information they can tell you. And finally, mortgages. So how do you get mortgage overage leads? And this is one of the biggest barriers, I would say, between people having success, especially in mortgage surplus funds, or mortgage funds for short, that is much more of a barrier than some of the other niches. Mortgage leads, really the best way to get them at this moment is to track foreclosures. So if you can track future upcoming foreclosures in your area, using several different sites, they're all public, just look them up, foreclosure auction sites. You can kind of track them coming up. Now, there are some private sites that will sell you, post-foreclosure data, but a lot of times sites like that, they just don't really exist yet. Like, there's not a mortgage surplus fund lead site yet, right? Maybe one day there will be, but at this particular moment, there's not. So your best bet is to kind of track future foreclosures. Again, you can kind of do the courthouse thing, go to some auctions. If you're working on a local basis, if you're working in other areas, then you're going to have to look for something online, obviously. But that's kind of the best place to start with mortgages. Again, I've talked about this in several videos. The infrastructure for mortgage overages is just not built out nearly as much as any other real estate niche. So wholesaling, fix and flipping, all of that has been so overdone and built out that at this point there's too many options. Mortgage overages is kind of the opposite. And same thing with tax overages a little bit, but tax overages does have a couple sites that provide some pretty good data. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. Again, stay to the end of this video because next I'm going to be covering contracts. So how can you go out and get contracts for your niche and for your state? But if you're enjoying this video so far, drop a like, leave a comment below. Let me know if this so far has been helpful. And let's go ahead and let's jump into the contracts. All right, so contracts, and this is another big piece to doing surplus funds, state funds, mortgage funds, tax funds successfully. How do you actually get someone under contract? What do you send them? And this is a tricky question because every state is going to be different. Every niche is going to be different. To give you an example, with state funds, California, they just give you the contracts for free. But in many other places in state funds, they don't do that, and you would use a completely different contract. So it's a big question. And starting out with state funds again, what I would do if I were you is I would again look up your state followed by unclaimed property. And as I was looking it up, I would be looking on their website, seeing if they mention anything about private investigators or heir finders or fee finders or fund recovery people, or there's all these different names for the same thing of recovering state funds, okay? Every state has their own name for it because they want to be special. So I would look up, again, get on that state website and search and see if they offer you any free contracts, because a lot of states will. They'll just give you the contracts. A lot of states won't, but a lot of states will. Now, if they don't have a contract on their website and you call them and they just don't have a contract, the other option, a lot of times what they'll do is they won't give you a contract to use, but they'll give you a sample contract, okay, that's already filled out. And the reason why that's helpful is because you can just basically model that. You can just take their sample contract and turn it into your own contract. So that's another option as well. But if they don't have that and they don't give you a contract, and there's literally nothing you can do, at that point, basically the only option that's left is to bring in an attorney and have them write you out a contract. For us, we've spent over, at this point, probably about $3,500 to $4,000 in contracts that we give to our students in Service and Mastery for free. Now, if you're not in Service and Mastery, you don't have access to those. So you would need to go out and actually hire an attorney yourself to write those contracts for you and for your state. If you try to do it yourself, it's just not going to work. You're probably going to miss something. You're probably going to mess something up. And the worst thing in the world, guys, is to send out a contract, be excited about a first deal. Let's say you're going to make $1,000 on the deal. Not a crazy amount of money, but enough to be excited, right? And you send out a contract, and everything goes well, you submit it to the state, and the state says, hey, you know what, you filled out this contract wrong. Because of that, we're not going to send you the money. We're going to just send your client all the money, okay? You don't want that to happen. So just get an attorney to do it. You can pay them $300, $400, okay, that's even pushing it, I think, to write a simple 1 or 2 page contract based on the laws that your state has. Don't just tell them to write a contract. Tell them to look at the state fund laws or the unclaimed property laws for what I'm doing and write me a contract for that, okay? Now, if you're working in tax overages, tax overages, again, it's the same kind of thing. So every state's going to be different. Every state's going to be different in 2 main ways. So number 1 is, do you need an attorney to do a deal there? And number 2 is, if you don't need an attorney, what are the specific rules, regulations, and laws regarding tax funds or tax overages in that area that need to be in the contract? So to give you an example of this, there's certain states where you just flat out can't really do tax overages that well, okay? Then there's other states, like Florida is a great example, where tax overages are blossoming over there, and they're very, very simple and easy to do, and you don't even really need an attorney, to be quite honest with you. So you need to do kind of some research. What I would recommend is, again, bringing in an attorney, or if you're not in a program already, not trying to plug my own stuff here, but you need someone to guide you through that process, because again, the worst thing in the world is to mess one tiny detail up and you don't get paid because of that. I've seen people literally lose $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on a deal because of this, right? So don't screw this up. Make sure it's done correctly. Make sure you have the guidance. And if you are in a program, whether it's mine or someone else's, the first time you're doing the contract, make sure you have someone looking it over. Make sure you have someone double checking the contract, making sure it's done correctly. Now with mortgages, it's kind of more of the same, right? Mortgages is very specific because there's a lot more rules and regulations with mortgages, even more so than taxes from what we've seen. So for example, I've read through some of the Texas mortgage overage laws, and if my memory is serving me correctly, because this was over a year ago that I read these laws, in Texas, you can only charge 20%, and you have to pay up front the balance. So to give you an example, in Texas with mortgage overages, if I remember correctly, let's say you, watching this, is owed $100,000. I contact you, and I say, hey, you're owed $100 grand. We charge 20%, but in order for me to do business, I have to pay you 80 grand up front, okay? Now, there's another way of doing mortgage overages that's called an assignment. That's a whole different thing. That's where you basically assign the right to the overage over to you. You assign the right of the surplus fund over to you. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about in this instance. What I'm talking about is actually representing someone. But because of that, again, that adds a whole nother layer of complexity with overages, with surplus funds, with mortgage funds specifically, where, yeah, okay, not only can you recover it on their behalf, but you can also actually transfer the funds over to you and then, pay them out of your own stuff. And that's a state-by-state thing as well. Some states absolutely do not allow that. California, you cannot do that in California for mortgage overages. But in many other states, you can, right? So this is where it goes down to, you got to do the research in your own state, you got to do the research in your own niche, and you got to know what you can and can't do. And that goes back to video number 2 of this series, talking about which state that you should do. All right, guys, so hopefully you enjoyed this video. As with every one of these videos, I'm going to be giving you guys some homework. In this video, I want you guys to go out, figure out where you're going to get your leads from, find a lead source. That's number one. And then the second part of the homework in this video is to secure some contracts, or at least have a plan to get some contracts. And we want that done by the time you watch the next video. The next video will be coming out on Thursday. If you're watching this the day that this gets pushed out, so it'll be 2 days from today. And in that video, I'll be talking about marketing. So, how our script works, taking you through kind of the general premise of our script, some major principles you need to understand for marketing for it to work. And that'll be in the next video. But before that, you need to have the lead selected, or a lead source found, and you need to have the contracts at least, being delivered soon, if not already have them secured in your hands. So that's the homework. Again, if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you guys can potentially be one of the winners of the free course when we do that once per month. I think that's it, guys. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.